When talking about the greatest games ever made, plenty of titles spring to mind readily. Shadow of the Colossus, one cries. Chrono Trigger calls another. Watch Dogs, a single, confused voice resounds. But among the greats, there are those that go unacknowledged. The true heroes, the definitive works of our time that, despite their inarguable status as masterpieces, get little love from the uncultured masses. And today, I'm going to shed some light on the undisputed king of video game artistry. A little game called Sneak King. Hello, I'm the Game Professor, and welcome to Games as Lit 101. Back in 2006, fast food giant Burger King extended its reach into the realm of video games with 3 titles for Xbox systems. One was Pocket Bike Racer, a fine but overall mediocre racing game. The other was Big Bumpin', a surprisingly fun bumper car-based party game to play with your friends. And then the third was the low-key greatest game of all time, Sneak King. Get it? Sneak King? Like, he's the king, and he's gonna sneak, so he's the Sneak King, but also he's sneaking? See, even the title of this game is just pure, unadulterated artistry. Sneak King puts the player in the role of the illustrious monarch himself, the Burger King, as he visits 4 unique locations to deliver happiness and burgers to the lucky people around him. It's a stealth game, developed by none other than famous purveyor of licensed games, Blitz Games Studios, which closed its doors in 2013 because this world could no longer support its magnificence. Because these heroes, the true kings of this story, had the absolute solid steel balls to create an anti-corporate work of satire right under the nose of one of the biggest fast food corporations in the world. Don't believe me? Look upon the brilliance that is Sneak King, and allow me to elucidate. The first and most crucial aspect of the game's central metaphor is the player character, the Burger King himself. This is a monarch, the ruler of burgers, and in this game he deigns to roam among the peasantry and surprise them with paltry offerings of food. This front of kindness, of charity, makes him seem benevolent and caring at first glance. And since the game doesn't go into whether his surprise burgers provide tax breaks, I suppose we'll never know exactly how self-motivated his actions truly are. But, like all truly great masterpieces of interactive art, much of the game's meaning lies not in its lore, but in its mechanics and how they interact with the premise and themes of the game. The first level of the game is at a lumber mill, and the king must adequately surprise the workers with Burger King menu items. And it's here we immediately see the dire predicament of the working class. They're literally collapsing from hunger every few minutes. And not only does their ruler have the gall, the absolute audacity to come around offering soggy fries as though that solves the problem, but these poor people are such bootlickers, such willing cogs in this capitalist system that they celebrate his every appearance. A truly benevolent monarch would redistribute his own wealth to ensure fair compensation for the workers that create value for the companies that employ them. A genuinely charitable ruler would enact social change to ensure that his subjects are cared for rather than working them to death with the promise of occasional surprise whoppers as recompense. But no, let them eat burgers, he says, and the peasantry thanks him for the privilege. And as if the king's token food distribution weren't enough to solidify his complete lack of concern for the plight of the lower classes, the game includes a newspaper article with the implication that the true purpose of bringing food to the serfs at the lumber yard was to keep them fit for working. I shouldn't be surprised that the Burger King's apparent benevolence is truly motivated by a need to keep his workforce producing more wealth for himself and his fellow cronies. Truly, this is a work of genius satire, appearing on the surface to be nothing more than a silly little game made for Burger King to make a killing off of, which they did. Oddly enough, this game made them a surprising amount of money, frankly. But it is, in truth, a depiction of the thin veneer of benevolence that corporations project while profiting off the backs of their workers. But even beyond this inspired depiction of capitalist greed, Blitz Games infused metaphor into the game mechanics themselves. There are two modes in which the king can explore the game's areas. One in free roam, where the player can wander freely and accept missions, and then the mission mode itself, in which the player must perform their clandestine deeds of cheeseburger delivery. In mission mode, the king must sneak and avoid being seen. This is his public persona, and he will take care to purport himself in a manner that the people around him find acceptable. The player must take care in how they approach the people around them, in how they are to be seen, and for that reason, the king's default movement is sneaking, and the player must hold the right trigger to run. But in free roam, when it doesn't matter if the king is perceived, and indeed, no one seems to notice him regardless, the default mode of movement is running. When perception doesn't matter, the king has no care for his behavior, representing the complete lack of morals and scruples displayed by the upper classes whenever they feel the eyes of the world aren't on them. And even when the king does need to sneak around, it's remarkably easy, because the NPCs in this game have the worst case of Metal Gear Solid henchman syndrome I've ever seen, only perceiving whatever is in this small blue area before them. This is the ideal populace for the ruler of a capitalist dystopia, blind to the world around them, fixated only on their work, and completely enamored with their corporate overlords. And what's worse? The game actively encourages the player to ignore the needs of these hungry people until the last possible moment. Each delivery is scored based on a number of criteria, one of which is hunger. Basically, the closer someone is to fainting from starvation, the more points the player will get for feeding them. The player is rewarded for observing the suffering of their targets until they absolutely can wait no longer, and only then should they use resources on feeding them. Because of course the Burger King, this symbol of corporate greed and the faux philanthropy of the ruling class, would maximize profits by ignoring the needs of his subjects until his hand is forced. Truly, this game is a cautionary tale, a glimpse into our dark dystopian future should we allow late-stage capitalism to continue unrestrained. And do you want to be ruled by a man who looks like this? Or who dances like this? Or this? Or this? Neither do I, dear viewer. Neither do I. Of course, the player's hard work sneakily delivering meals to peasants is eventually rewarded with nothing but a different outfit for the king. And what better metaphor for capitalism than for the king to remain at the top and indeed get even more wealth than he had before, while the player who actually did all the work to get him there gets peanuts for all the value they provided him. With that, I hope I have adequately demonstrated the shining brilliance that is Sneak King's satirical social commentary, and what's more, happy April Fools, everyone. May we all enjoy thinking way too hard about the random crap we play, because the worst we can get out of it is a laugh. Until next time, class dismissed.